The trade in this video is a perfect example that news strength doesn't mean trend continuation, and how the open can trap a lot of sellers who think they're fading a CPI pump. This wasn't a demand zone or a higher time frame trade. This was from recent structure after news, where sellers got trapped and absorbed multiple times, and where buyers eventually stepped in very aggressively. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how the trap is forming and how I saw in real time that the selling was getting absorbed, and why the long setup made so much sense right after the open with a lot of aggressive selling. So let's get right into it.
Alright, so let me go over the higher time frame first. I'm on here on the 15-minute, and I want to just state that we have been uptrending all pre-market. Alright, and then here we had the CPI news data that came out, which then pumped price aggressively to the upside, approaching this level here where sellers might try and step in, where the day prior we had support over here, and that eventually broke down with a very aggressive selling. So we could expect those same sellers to step in here again in this whole area of previous structure and consolidation right over here as well. And that's exactly what they did, and that's also why you see that as soon after the CPI news pump, price started slowing down a little bit here right around that area. And this level is very significant, so you have to keep that in mind for later as well in the video. So later in this video, I'm going to be going over why I chose this area as well in my pre-market plan, to look for, if we retraced into here, to look for those same buyers that push price up higher after this CPI news pump. And the reason for that is sellers here tried to break down after the CPI news pump. As you can see here on the order flow as well on the footprint, there were a lot of sellers that tried breaking it down, but then price was eventually able to push price up higher and break structure. So I was waiting for that retrace and see those same buyers and trapped sellers to then take the market long. So without further ado, let's jump right into the actual order flow analysis on the Bookmap, and let me explain to you what I saw off of market open with all this aggressive selling to then eventually take the market long right over here. Alright, so right over here is market open, and we see an immediate pump off of market open, which is some buying coming deeper into that supply level, or that level where sellers were very strong the previous day, as I told you in the video. And now we see that aggressive selling started to come in, and we want to see what price will do around our level of the 25s, as I showed you in my pre-market plan. Let me slow it down for you a little bit now, because we see a lot of aggressive selling coming in, right? And that is obviously scary to go against, but if you wait for the right levels and the right key areas for price to potentially make a reversal, then all of that selling can get trapped very, very quickly. And most traders would see this like quick pump on market open above all the pre-market highs, and then aggressive selling starting to step in. A lot of traders will think this is bearish, this is going to be a failed CPI pump move, and they're going to try to short this market. And depending on where they get in, they might get a couple of points out of it, but they're not going to get a decent move. And this is just a retrace for buyers to fuel up more to then take the market long. And the important thing to note here as well is the area that I'm looking at is very, very recent structure. This is from just an hour before market open. This is not a higher time frame demand zone where it's very obvious that buyers might try and step in. No, this is very recent structure right after the CPI news data. As you can see here, this is the CPI news data, and that's where sellers tried breaking it down and coming back to the downside, but buyers supported that move. The buyers from the CPI move also supported that, and then broke price to the upside. So that's why this is very crucial to have these quick last-minute decisions in your trading, that these areas can have a very significant reaction in the market because buyers are very strong here. So that's also something you got to remember. And if this level, let's say, would just sell off and will burn through it, then I would not be interested in long. But you can see the slow sell-off, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later as well here on the footprint, to what I saw that for me was obvious absorption. Alright, so I'm gonna go back to the Bookmap now. So we're selling off, and the sellers are trying to break down below the CPI news candle, right? And the 20s, as you can see here, the 20s is the top of that CPI news candle, but we're interested around the 25s, the 24s, as you saw in my pre-market plan. We're interested in that to look for longs, right? And as you can see, this sell-off is a lot of aggressive selling, but it's going slow, and that's not what you want to see for a sell-off. Like they're slowly breaking down price, and to me this is already a sign of potential absorption. With all this aggressive selling and price is just like slowly selling off, to me that's sellers trying, but they're getting absorbed. And to me this is looking like sellers are really trying and they're working hard to break down price lower, but they're not really getting paid. It's slowly grinding down and not really too much significant. So as you can see here, sellers are really trying to break down price lower with a lot of aggressive selling. and they're working very hard at it. But here you can see it slow down. Here you can see it slowing down as well, and the aggressive buying is starting to step in, right? As you can see over here, and especially here. You see this bid filling here as well. This, to me, this slow downside movement is telling absorption, especially with these bids popping up and the aggressive buying starting to step in. So this is really telling me in real time that buyers are really interested in protecting this level, defending this level to then take price to the upside. And then we see this absorption here, we see a reaction from buyers, and then we get that little stop hunt below the low day right over here. And look at all these bids, right, sitting over here, and especially this one here, all ready to protecting. And what is this? The 6A20, which I said as well, is the top of that CPI news candle where it closed. The top of that candle where the pump ended. This is exactly at the 6A20. I'll show you that later on the chart. And this is where buyers are really starting to protect this level and defend it strongly. So let's go back to the Bookmap now and show you the actual entry. Alright, so I'm going to slow it down now a little bit and show you how it looks almost in real time, how you would look for this entry. So right now we've seen this sellers trying to break it down, but it's going very slow. And this is looking like massive absorption for me. To me from buyers. And now we see that classic stop hunt below the low day where we had like an area of consolidation right over here, right, where sellers tried breaking it down like multiple times here, around 4 or 5 times, and they were unable to. They got absorbed, they got trapped. Aggressive buying started stepping in, but then they do that stop hunt to stop out these early buyers, and then they get absorbed once again. These bids here are protecting price as well, and now we're pulling back. After that aggressive buying started stepping in, we pulled back, and look at this, how it's just swept below these lows, very aggressive selling. Immediately buyers started stepping in, like very, very quickly. They stepped in, aggressive buying. Look at that, the amount of and the size of these green bubbles, right at our key level of interest as well, around the 23s, 25. This is very crucial. Bounced on top of that CPI news candle, and aggressive buying is stepping in once again after having a pullback here with weaker selling right on top of this structure over here. As you see here, this is where buyers are previously strong, pushed price back to the upside, back in this range, pulled back with weaker selling. As you can see, this selling bubble here is much smaller than all the selling that initially pushed price to the downside. So seeing that weaker selling, seeing all of this absorption going on, and then that aggressive buying started to step in. This is why I'm comfortable taking the market long at 26 with like a 4-point stop below this low here at the 22s. And as I said in my pre-market plan, targeting the 40s. And I'm going to speed it up now a little bit to show you how the entry looked and how in real time price started blowing up to the upside right to our target, and it almost hit the 40s here, and there you go, 40s got hit, target got hit, and you were in here like around the 26s, like I said, around 3:51 my time PM, and just 5 minutes later, right over here, you hit your target without any drawdown, without any pullbacks. This is just a very clean A+ setup where it is the most important is you react to what price is telling you. You choose your area of interest, which was the CPI pump. Right on top of that, where sellers tried breaking down below the CPI pump, but they failed. Buyers pushed it back to the upside, and when market opened, we sold off aggressively, but not very fast. And it was a slow grind down. That to me told me that there was a lot of absorption, and that I can show you right over here on the footprint as well. As you can see, price is selling off, right? Very slowly, but we're making lower lows and lower highs. But here on the bottom, on the cumulative volume delta, I see nothing that says to me that is still a downtrend. Like all of that selling here stayed on the same level, right? Not a single low was broken since this footprint bar. Since this footprint bar, on the price did make lower lows and lower highs, but on the cumulative volume delta, it did not make lower lows since this footprint bar. And that to me tells me that all of this aggressive selling is not really going anywhere and is getting absorbed because it's not making lower lows on the cumulative volume delta. And that is just all of that passive buyers, which were sitting here in the pre-market, right at that level, around the 25s, which push price to the upside, and also at the top of that CPI candle. That's why all these sellers got trapped and absorbed, and that's why the reaction of our trade at that perfect area, and after this stop hunt where those early buyers got stopped out, right after, sellers got trapped once again with all of these bids. Look at all this passive buying here sitting to absorb all that selling. Aggressive buying steps in, and on these pullbacks I see weaker to almost no selling compared to the selling that initially sold off, and then aggressive buying steps in again, and then you just ride the wave and ride the momentum with those same buyers, and then you hit your target, which is a 14-point move on 4 points of risk in 5 minutes. That's just a beautiful trade. That's over 3R, which is just amazing in 5 minutes, and you're in and out of the trade very quickly. And you could say, why not target high day, or why not target further? I'm happy with 3R. I do not want to go against all of that selling that initially sold off. And also, you got to remember, we're still at that area of consolidation and resistance from the day prior, where price sold off aggressively for over 100 points. So I do not want to fight that. I do not want to fight this previous support that potentially turns into resistance. I do not want to fight this consolidation range where sellers absorbed all the buying. So that's why my target was just intraday, not really a higher time frame target. Intraday levels just below where the sellers initially sold off from market open at the 40s right over here. And I do not want to fight all of the selling. If I can get in here at the bottom of the day and get out in 5 minutes time right below where the sellers initially sold off from, to me that's perfect, especially if you can get a 3R in 5 minutes. So that's that. So on days like this, if you can learn and identify where sellers really try and break down price, but they fail and they get trapped and absorbed, this is where days like this are gonna start becoming very clear to you and very easy to trade. And if you want more order flow breakdowns like this, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.